people bantering like
Yeah, it's not.
African versus, and back then you don't really kind of
No,
deep
you don't
how
really understand what you're doing.
how
Yeah.
bad it is. But I think we just kind of laugh it off because oh yeah, it's like literally people used to think that oh like Africans are like Jamaicans never wanted to be like if you told a Jamaican oh you got some you're African as well, no, don't say that, don't.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
like,
People will do that all the time. Yeah.
and I don't
Or
know why it was so there was such a
or sometimes you get which I find funny. You get like Caribbeans. So basically, if I tell someone I'm Caribbean,
Yeah.
the first country they're probably gonna guess is Jamaica. So be like, oh, you're Jamaican, aren't you? Or just straight away just assume that
Yeah.
I'm Jamaican, and then you get people going, no, I'm not Jamaican. I didn't say I was from Jamaica. I'm like Bayesian or I'm from like
yeah, like people,
Trinidad
I
or
don't know why
do you
people
know what I mean?
get so uptight.
It
Like
just gets a bit
it's
awkward.
not. I don't know. It's not like yeah. I don't. It's there's definitely deep rooted. But as kids, we don't know these things.
No,
Innit?
you
We
don't.
don't. We just think no. I'm like some things are just cool in it. Like it's. I won't say it wasn't cool to be African because. But back then, you would think that's the case because the way people kind of treat each other, like you would think that
Yeah.
we're just kind of like we're not one. Everyone's like, no, you're African, I'm Jamaican.
Yeah.
We're not together. But it's like,
Yeah.
bro, we're all
You just want
like
kids.
all one. Like so, it's
Yeah.
not. I don't know. So I don't know. I always kind of felt like that growing up. That was the only kind of thing. I would say like childhood wise was a bit. Oh, not looking back now, I'm like actually, you know what? Yeah, that actually wasn't even right. Even me just kind of saying, oh, I'm Jamaican. There's something deeper. Like,
Yeah,
do you know
yeah.
what I mean?
No, I know what you mean.
Like So I don't know. Yeah, and obviously like everyone went through different experiences like during childhood, and I think a lot of us do kind of have the same kind of relate to the same thing in terms of whether like school, things like playing outside, asking mom, "Oh, can I sleep over at this person's house?" Or things like even what else was it like? What else was it? Like coming home after school, maybe like watching your like I remember like TV was so like I was so like gassed to like finish school at 3:30, go home watch
Go home
Nickelodeon,
and just watch TV.
Trouble, or what was the other one? I think Disney at the time.
Yeah, yeah.
Like and that's kind of what like as kids we kind of do in it.
Yeah, that's what you do. That's what you do when you're.
And like obviously for you it was a bit different because you went through a lot without actually knowing fully like what it was
What was really going
going
on.
through.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like there's the whole like grief in childhood and then there's grief in adulthood. Like so
Yeah.
just like talk about your like basically those two losses. So like from the grief in childhood, the first loss and then the second loss being like your sister.
Yeah, my sister. Yeah.
So like what was that kind of more so like the what was that how did that kind of impact your childhood like losing
So
like
I
losing
think
your mum?
I think it was really really tough. So I lost my mum when I was 13, and my mum was like my rock, like literally superwoman. She would like work 2 jobs, still pick us up on time from school, hot dinner every day, packed lunches, looking healthy every day. Like there's
well no sandwiches and apples.
there was no concerns, and I have a lot of siblings, right? So there's 9 of us in total.
Yeah.
So the
You know,
house
I thought it was no, that was seven brothers, right?
7 brothers,
Okay,
and then
wow, that's
me
a
and my
big family,
sister.
man.
So it's bizarre, and the thing is as well. So you have like a split. So like me and my younger brothers, and then we're all like 1 year sort of apart.
Yeah.
And then there's like a 10-year gap, and then there's the 4 elder ones.
Yeah.
So all of us are in school at the same time. There's so much to do. There was never a day where I didn't get what I wanted basically, and I didn't understand how my mum always pulled that off. But I didn't start realizing how much she was doing until she was gone. Because so my mum was basically my mum and my dad.
Yeah.
So we all lived with my mum, and then my dad was just wherever he was really. We saw him like once off, but my mum we never really knew what was going on, but we were so happy with
like
mum.
she made sure that
it was
that
just
nothing
like
was,
no one ever
you were
questioned
lacking
where my
anything.
dad was, because we was just gassed being kids like with my mum. So yeah, and then I lost my mum when I was 13, which came as like a big shock because I didn't really know that she was unwell for a while. And it hit hard. I remember I changed a lot through school. I was never like the loudest kid, but I was always with groups, and you always catch me laughing and joking, or like just with different types of groups. Like, do you know what I mean? Always been active, basically, in and around things. To just someone that just wanted to just be like a shadow, basically, just by myself, not talking, avoiding everything possible. Like even like coming in school in the mornings, I used to come in purposely late so that teachers don't. Because when you walk in, sometimes it's like, oh hi, like Teni, how are you? Like, I hated that question. I hated it. So I used to come
like
in late.
during the time, like she, as in after she
Yeah,
passed?
this is after she passed. Yeah, so I used to like come late to school every day just so I can avoid those questions, sneaking in the back of the classroom and just sit down. No one really notices that I've arrived or not arrived. Like, do you know what I mean? It's just all those sorts of things that got really hectic. And I remember I was going to school at the same time with my two younger brothers, right? So I was in, so they were like 1 year each below me. And yeah, we were just, at that point, I'll be honest, we were troublemakers.
Really?
Like, we used to cause so much trouble in school, but because we were really angry inside. We were really angry about the situation,
expressing.
about not knowing about my mum's illness. We found out a lot of things about my dad as well after my mum passed. And like, we've been taken from a house where everything is happy, like dinner's always there, to living with my dad where there's not hot food. Sometimes he forgets to like come to parents' evening or turn up to like whatever parents are supposed to turn up for. Just it being a really horrible and just not happy household. Do you know what I mean? I couldn't call that home. So yeah, it hit a lot, and we used to leave home every morning being very, very angry about that, and we used to take that anger into school, and the teachers never understood or never took the time to kind of channel down in it and kind of talk about why I was misbehaving or whatever. And we were all in it together, really. So like, if my younger brother got detention, he would tell me at lunchtime, like, oh, do you know what, I've got an hour detention today. So me and my other brother might purposefully do something wrong just so we can get attention as well, so we can go home and deal with my dad at the same time. Because we stuck together.
Oh, well, yeah,
so we didn't.
That's
we
some
didn't,
serious
yeah,
loyalty, boy.
because it's like, if I go home, I've got to spend an extra hour with my dad by myself, and I didn't want to do that.
Oh, okay.
So we would all stick, or I would wait outside the gate for an hour until he was finished, and then would go together. Until eventually I moved out with my sister a couple of years after that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a big change. It was a big change.
Like, that's the thing in school. Like, I've talked about it quite a few times, even on the podcast as well. I feel like when children like go through like grief, lose someone, like, I don't, obviously at that age you not really understand it from a point of view of like just talk about it. More time you're just kind of like expressing it. So maybe that's maybe through anger or lashing out because you don't quite understand like what's going on, because like even just as adults we're expressive, but even children as well, like they're expressive as well, but they might not express things how we express them because they're children, so in a way they kind of, you kind of have to give them some kind of leeway, because like they don't process these things, and it's tough like dealing with. It's one thing kind of like going through other things in life, but losing someone like at young, where you're like thinking, hold on, my mum, I'm used to like my mum, like in your case you said like waking up, there's food there, and then things change, because like what it is as kids, you need stability, like and you have a routine you're used to. So when that's kind of disrupted, it's like, okay, like what do I do? And like it sounds like your mum was like really like holding it down, like doing what she needs to do. And I think that's always kind of, I see that a lot in, I feel like with it's just a trait with mum. I just feel like mums are just like superwomen when they need to be, man. Even like there will be both mum and dad, and you just think, how are they even doing it? Like, and you just think to myself, can I ever like, I don't know where they get their strength from, man. But I think it's part of it is maybe because I've got to do what I have to do in it. Do you know what I mean? But sometimes that can be a lot though, man. Just even like, because earlier today I was having like a convo, and I'm just saying like, a lot of my friends now, we kind of I won't say like we had a lot of family, but it's more so like kind of had like broken homes where like mum and dad separated, so a lot of the time it's just kind of our mums are the ones that really are the integral
Yeah.
people. Not to say like I can't speak for everyone, but like my dad wasn't really there like that. Not because he didn't want to, but it's just like my mum was the one like, okay, I want to make sure they're good and things like that. And obviously for you, that was kind of you had lost that, so I can imagine that's kind of like what do I do now, like sort of thing. And and I think in you had a lot of older siblings, so it's kind of like, would you say you kind of already had like a mother figure, like, well, two mother figures, because there's your mum and then there's like your older sister?
Mm. Yeah, definitely. I think so after a while I was living with my dad, and it just wasn't working out basically. So I said to him, look, this is not working out. Also, just being the only female in that household as well was also new for me as a young girl, because remember, if I'm in my mum's house, my sister and my mum's there, so it's just difficult. And because there was a lot of stuff going on with my dad, I know there's a lot of separation in terms of like my older brothers and sisters couldn't actually come to the house to come to see us because there was conflicts with my dad. So I was just missing out on everything, and I just kind of felt really, really excluded. I felt like, okay, well, I'm the only girl now in this house, and no one really understands in this house what girls go through at that age. Like your hormones are changing, you might be going through whatever else it is you're going through, and I'm a young 13-year-old girl, and I've got no female around me to kind of sit down and talk to me about those type of things. So yeah, after a while, I just got a bit fed up of it. I think I lasted about, I think it was 3 years. I think it was 3 years. Yeah, no, 2 years at my dad's house until I really kicked off, and I said, look, I'm leaving, and you need to sign me over to my sister, basically.
Yeah.
In a way, I felt kind of bad about it, because I felt like I forced the position onto my sister. You know what I mean? Like, I kind of said, you have to deal with me now because I need a female, and you're the only one left, basically. Yeah. So it was difficult. But my sister, being my sister, who is amazing, was like, yeah, of course. I've been waiting for you to come to me.
I was like, oh gosh, like, why are you kind of putting this pressure on me?
Never ever took it as, I was a burden or whatnot. So she signed over to be my legal guardian. And then that's when I moved in with her. And ultimately, I got babied again. Yeah. That's what happened. My sister done everything for me.
But that's what always happens.
She set the foundations again. Do you know what I mean? So making sure, I was always going to school on time, understand that it was important to do my homework. Things that your parents kind of set those foundations and make it clear to you. But, at my dad's house, he wasn't getting that. Like, we can come home all day and play video games and just, no one's going to tell us anything. You know?
You needed that structure.
I needed it, because otherwise I wouldn't be the person I am today. So yeah, at times obviously it felt harsh, and it clashed a little bit sometimes, because there were times when I know that, I asked her for things, like young people would, and then she would have to think, all right, what would I say as a sister? But then what would my mum say?
Okay.
And she would have to give me the mum response all the time, because she understood that she was now responsible for me as I was her young individual. It wasn't just she was my sister. So sometimes, that's difficult as well. That was another stage that was new for me, because I was a teenager growing as like a young lady. I was 16 at this point, I think, and I was thinking, hold on a minute, you're my sister, but you're not really my mum. So can't I just have my sister some days and then my mum some days? But that's not how it works when you sign over to be someone's legal guardian. That's not how it works. You either kind of one or the other, or you combine both together and you do the best you can. And my sister did that, and I'm grateful for that, to be honest, because my younger brothers, they didn't get out of my dad's house until some went off to uni, or someone just moved out after a while, and it was difficult for them. But it was hard, because I felt like I was also leaving them in a bit of a hole. We always have this like running joke when we sit down, and they say, oh yeah, you escaped anyway after 2 years. And yeah, it's hard. My youngest brother at the time when my mum passed was 5.
Oh wow.
And he's 14 now. So I left my 3 youngest brothers to deal with my dad, because I needed to get out and live with my sister. And they just thought I was over there living a happy life. I was getting...
Yeah. It's hard though, because like, I think as siblings, we're always going to want to look after our siblings, and sometimes even at a cost of even putting our kind of needs to one side and think, okay, right, I need to make sure they're straight before I'm straight. But sometimes you need to just do something for yourself, man. Even though like it may, and I think there always comes with guilt because you feel like, okay, look, like, you know, they're grieving too, but as crazy as it sounds, they have their own grief as well. Do you know what I mean? And of course, like you know, as the older sibling, you know, you're gonna do your best to be there for them and help them through it. But you know, it sounds like you reach the point where, you know what, okay, like, I can't, like, I need to just like put myself first. I need to kind of do what I need to do. And but when you kind of thought, okay, right, I want to go to my sister's, did you think, yeah, this is gonna be a breeze, man?
Yeah.
Older sister, like, I can do what I want. I can stay up late. I can watch this and that. I can, you know, like, we can just do whatever. I can just like. Was he in for a shock when you were like, you got that mum mode? You didn't get the sister mode and the mum mode. You got, right, I'm your sister, but listen, we need to establish some ground rules. Like, was that a shock?
Yeah, definitely. I remember one of the first times I came in and I came home from school late. And late is like 6 p.m, 6:30.
Yeah, them times,
you know,
6
like,
and 8 it's bad late.
That's like school finished at 3. Why it take 3
Yeah,
hours
yeah.
to get home? Like, what happened there? So I came through the door all merry, just thinking like, oh yeah, I done it at my dad's house. He didn't question it. My sister's definitely not going to question it. Like, she's not my parents, so I could do whatever. And she was vexed that day. I remember she said, oh, where do you think you're going? Like, I need an explanation for why you're like 3 hours late. And I think that's when I started realizing, like, oh, it's like this. Okay, so I have to really actually. And then she was basically just saying violation, saying, look, yeah, if you're going to be late, it's not really a problem, but you got to text me. I got to know where you are. I got to know the reason. Basically, you can't just roll in and out. That's not how it's going to work. But my sister, one thing that I really, really, what helped me as well, she was very, very open about it. So let's just say I say to her, look, I don't know, there's this move, like there's this party, like, can I go to the party? She would say, as a sister, I would say yes, go and have fun, because I've been there, I've done that.
Yeah.
But mum would say, you're too young and it's not safe. What do you want to do? So then I'd have to decide, like, okay, if mum would say no, then if mum says no, then it's a no. You know, I think I should just sit down. So that's how I grew.
I respect that.
So what worked is I never felt forced to do anything. It was always, mum's raised you well up until 13. I'm just going to give you the advice that she gave me during those years that you missed, because she had those teenage years with my mum, so she knows what my mum would say and wouldn't say most of the time.
Yeah.
So I just learned to kind of grow through that way. But I definitely walked in thinking it was going to be a breeze, and it wasn't. We had many clashes, but we figured it out.
Yeah, like, I think at the time, did you think, like, because obviously in your head you're thinking, yeah, I'm doing my sister, it's a vibe. But then when you realize actually this is not the case, were you did you have a bit of resentment, or did you just feel, okay, you know what, I see why she's doing this, like, it's not she doesn't mean no harm, she's doing it's for my own good? Or do you realize that later?
I realised later, yeah. There's always resentment. Teenagers, that's what it's like, innit? Even now, like, when you was a teenager and you were maybe causing your mum trouble or whatever it is, you're sitting now and you're thinking, I should have just been humble then, you know? There was no need to behave like that. And I kind of realised that a bit now. I think during my years when I kind of went off to uni, I started maturing quite a lot. And I started realising, that's when I started having conversations with my sister, like, oh, do you know when I was 16, I was annoying, innit? Like, and we used to joke and laugh about it, and then we formed kind of like a new sort of adult sisterly bond after she'd already put in the groundwork. Yeah. So, I realised a lot later.
See, as kids, so we can be so ungrateful, you know, but it's our innocence. It's like, sometimes you have to kind of go through these things, yeah. But you know, one thing that I rate, like, with, you know, like our parents and even like older siblings, like, they don't fold. Yeah. Listen, you can say I hate you all you want. You can be like, oh, it's not fair, but they don't fold. And they see what it is, because they know that, listen, I know it's for your own good, but don't ever fold, because sometimes, we were a handful. We were a handful, like, back in then. You think, oh, why you not letting me do this? And that's the difference between not kind of. And I feel like when I think of my experience and all the things I wasn't allowed to do, I'm thinking, oh, why? Oh, they're just being enemies of progress, man. Why they not allowed me to do this? But you kind of realize, actually, you know what? It was for your own good, like, and sometimes when we don't have that kind of discipline, who knows how we turn out in terms of our character, how we are in life. Do you know what I mean? So you kind of have to be grateful for it, because it's needed, man. It's needed. You just think, because we don't know it all, but we think we do though. We think we do. Oh, you know what? Yeah, like I know what's best for me. But listen, you're just 16. What do you know? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, and like, because for me, one thing I always used to get annoyed about was why can't I stay out late? Like, I used to get so annoyed that like most of it, like my friends and stuff would go to one party, like, and I'm like, oh, I can't even relate, because I wasn't even allowed to these. Like, so people were going to parties before like 16, like, and I'm like, right, that must be nice. Like, I've got a cut over. Like, I come
You
home
got
past
curfew.
8. Yeah, like I'm like, nah, that's late. Like, one time came home late from school and it was 8 o'clock. I'm thinking it's only 8 o'clock. It's not that deep, but I think it was, at the time, it was two things. Like, as the, especially like with mums and boys, like back then there's a lot of like stabbings. So that was one of the things. And number two, it's just like your parents don't want you to get into in the wrong crowd. Like, that's how things start. Like, you start hanging around and going to things you're not supposed to be going at the time, then your eyes are open to things that they shouldn't be open to, and before you know it, you knows what you're dabbling in. So yeah, man, I think like it was, looking back now, like, okay, I'm grateful, like, because honestly, like, I don't know in it. It's not to say that I would have turned out like a rotten apple, but you just don't know in it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, but so after you kind of realized that, okay, you know what, this is for my own good, because you then said you kind of formed that kind of sisterly bond. But at that point, was it less? At that point, did the whole kind of mother mode kind of lessen with you and her, or was it kind of like now a bit of both when you formed that kind of sister? What I say? Sisterhood. I would say.
Yeah. No, it did lessen a lot, because I think obviously I got to an age where I was 18 now, and really, like, you got to start making a few of your own life decisions, making
Yeah.
a few of your own mistakes. And my sister let me do that.
Okay.
But one thing with my sister is that there's a procedure. So as long as you follow there's a process, yeah?
Yeah.
So as long as you follow the process, so normally the process is like, if you're coming in late, just be like, hey, do you know what? I'm coming in late. A little
Yeah,
text
yeah, yeah.
message so she knows about it. Or do you know what? I'm just at so and so place with so and so.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
this is what's going on. So she's always in the mix. Once you start hiding things, that's when mum mode
Oh, okay,
kind
yeah.
of
So
comes out.
in a way, she kind of allowed you to do what you need to do, but just let me know in it, more or less.
Yeah.
Like, cool,
So
do your thing, but if you're gonna not come home, let me know where you're staying, or that kind of vibe.
yeah. She's not really like a shut it down type of person. Of course, if I was staying at, let's just say I was staying at one of my friend's house or something, and I tried to do that 3 or 4 times in a row, she would just talk to me and say, do you know what? Once, twice is all right, but it's not every weekend, innit? You don't need to
Oh,
do
okay,
this
yeah,
every
yeah,
week.
yeah.
Like, this is not how it goes. And yeah, I sort of just understood that sort of process. But I think as well, when I got to like 18, I started having a lot of conversations with my two younger brothers about like their childhood, and just sort of reflecting on what happened after I left that house, sort of. So like
Yeah.
them just still being stuck with dad, and just really wanting to like escape, sort of. So one of my younger brothers went to uni to study a course he didn't even want to, because he just wanted to get out of the house from my
Oh,
dad.
wow.
So it's crazy, and we started talking about all these things that kind of went on through childhood, and basically channeling down on that joke we used to run about how I escaped
Yeah,
to like
yeah.
a happier life. And then I started thinking, wow, I really had it. Like, my sister really covered a lot of stuff for me, because I never I never talked about my mum for 10 years after her passing. Yeah, like, I had my little moments. I cried about it and I was angry, but I wouldn't say I processed or dealt with that grief at all, because my sister literally jumped in that slot.
Yeah.
So I had
Okay.
everything that my mum gave me, like,
Okay. Yeah.
plus more, plus a sister who was gonna understand, who was like closer to my age, who was gonna get things maybe my
Yeah.
mum wouldn't. Do you know what I mean? So I had everything and more. Like, there wasn't a time when my sister, just whatever it is, she was working and just being like, okay, yeah, what do you need, like, to go out? Like, do you need
Yeah.
a new
Like
clothes or
yeah.
whatever? Like, everything. I had everything. She taught me everything. Showed me everything. Came with me everywhere. So I never had to really think too much about missing my mum. I'd say the period where I probably missed my mum the most was those 2 years when I lived in my dad's house, because I realised there was just a lot of things missing. But the moment I got back to my sister's house, I kind of, as a child, like forgot about it again. So I forgot about, in a way, like overall, do you get what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
It's because my sister covered all of that. She filled all of those slots that I needed filling at that time.
Like she just
until I got to
continued
uni.
from she just continued like from, let's say, from what your mum was doing.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, obviously you still had your grief.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. Would you say it wasn't as hard hitting because your sister was kind of there?
Yeah, honestly, never hit me until I got to uni. Never hit me. My mum's stuff never really started hitting me until I really got to uni, which is, my mum passed away 2011, went to uni in 2018.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I remember the first night of uni, I sat down and I thought, do you know what? Like, that was one of, like, that first week, I thought about my mum so much. Those past 4, 5, 6, 7 years, I could go days, months without the grief really crossing my mind like that. Just a little, yeah.
Yeah, like it must be, but like even just like hearing that, it's good that like your sister, like, sound like she did what she could, helped out. So you didn't really feel like you were lacking things in terms of, I don't know, it could be anything. Just like you're still able to kind of maneuver about, if you need anything, she's great for you. But even just like, I would say, like, so from last year when you lost your sister, so how's grief been like in this new kind of space of adulthood and just navigating through that?
It's been difficult. It's a very, very big struggle because I think I understand things a lot more now, and the process with my sister. So my sister was unwell for a while, and then she got to a point where the doctors had actually signed her off because she got like a blood transfer. So someone blood transfusion, sorry. So someone donated their bloods to her like at last minute, so she was good. And then on the process of her recovery, she actually had a heart attack in the hospital one day.
Oh wow!
So for 4 minutes or whatever happened in that room, the nurse actually stepped out to go to the toilet or switch over to the next nurse. In the space of that 4 minutes, she had a heart attack, which is where she now picked up heart condition problems. Oh, wow. So she's been on a long recovery since then, and the doctor said that her heart was looking great. So actually in 2019, they signed her off. And remember, so I moved into my sister's house 2013. She had her original like illness sort of 2012. So 1 year after my mum passed, she was still taking care of me this whole time.
Wow.
So like there was never a day. So she pretty much done what my mum done, but to greater extents in some way. Do you know what I mean? And 2019, the doctors signed her off and said, look, you're all good. Like, you don't need to come in for monthly checkups. You can just come maybe once a year, once every other year, and just make sure you're still keeping healthy, go to the gym and those sorts of things. And they're really not too sure what happened. So it got to September 2020, so in the lockdown period. And her legs just started swelling up a lot. And the doctors were saying she's got a lot of water that's building in her body, but for some reason it's not releasing. Which is sort of like a normal side effect that you get with the stuff that she's had, like the procedures. So she took the tablets as usual, and the tablets just wasn't working. So I said, look, let's just go to hospital. It's probably nothing, and they'll probably just be able to like drip it out of you, like on the drip, I think. And I didn't know that was going to be the last time that I would see her, like, I didn't know that hospital trip was going to be the last one that we were ever going to go to. So I took her into hospital, and then 1 week the doctors were saying it was just a chest infection. The next weeks after that, she had breathing problems. The week after that, she was on what's that, kidney dialysis, the kidney machine thing, where because her kidneys wasn't working properly, and her heart wasn't working to the percentage it's supposed to be working at. And then, I say luckily because the doctors, obviously at COVID time, they didn't want to let you in the hospitals, right? Yeah. So me and my older brother had to really fight to get someone in with her. My sister got to a point as well where she's a tough cookie, so she refused to take like medication unless a family member came in, basically. Yeah. So only way they were going to get her to take stuff is if someone can come in. So they granted us 4 hours of the day where I could be in the room with her. So 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the evening. And the rest of the time, like, I could sit in the next room next door, like in the waiting room or whatever.
Yeah.
Or I could leave and come back, basically.
Because sorry, I was gonna say, I thought, like, I know the whole COVID restrictions, but surely they allow one person, right? Or was you trying to get all your other siblings to be there?
In worst case scenario, they allowed one person.
Okay.
Yeah. So when it's at last resort, where basically they think the person's gonna pass away, or not gonna make it, they then allow that one person. But my sister wanted that before. Before they had got to that final decision. My sister wanted that before, because she didn't want to be there by herself.
Yeah, I can imagine that.
So yeah, for the last 2 weeks, I sat with her every day, and we just talked and chat and had like a laugh. Or some days, obviously she wasn't looking too well, whatnot. Yeah, it lasted about 2 weeks, but that was tough for me, because with my mum's one, I never saw her deteriorate. With my sister's one, I watched her deteriorate for those 2 weeks. So she was in hospital for that 4-week period, and she passed away by the end of that month. So it's very, very hard, I think, to watch someone deteriorate. And obviously, I'm like an adult now, right? So I'm understanding things a bit more. The doctor might be saying something, I'm Googling it to see what it really means. I'm trying to help in the best way I can, and there's not much I can do. I'm telling the doctors, like, you're not turning the machines off. She's gonna go until the last day. You will not turn the machines off. And it was tough, because when she had her stuff, like when she had like stuff like this before, I've seen my sister like look a lot worse on the machines. But I think it just got to a point where her body just couldn't take it anymore. So yeah, I remember the day, actually. It was really, really tough, because she sent me out to go and get a cushion for her back, because she was saying, the bed's not comfortable or something. So I went to Oxford Street, and I was shopping for ages. I remember I was, just walking in every shop like, nah, that's not the right one. It's not the right one. And then eventually I found the cushion. But then by the time I was scheduled to come back at 5 o'clock, I think it got to about 3 p.m. and I got a phone call saying that she was gone. So I didn't actually get to give her the cushion, or I didn't make it back to that second visit in the afternoon. But that morning, I promise you, like, we were laughing. She was eating porridge. That morning when I saw her, we were laughing. So I think it has played a big part on how I think now. My mind and my grief now is very, very different. I think because I understand, and I saw everything. I saw every step. I now try to think back, and I'm more interested in trying to fight. Like, so I've been asking my family members about what happened with my mum, what type of cancer she had, how long she was. I only started asking questions about my mum when my sister passed. Yeah. Because I wanted to sort of compare both and have a look at, so my mum's struggling like this as well then, or, because I never saw anything. My mum came home every day and she was all right, but turns out she was actually ill for 3 years, and I wouldn't have known that. So yeah, I just wanted to like compare both situations, and I think now it's hard because I'm just starting to process my mum's one, and my sister's one's now overloaded on that.
Yeah, so it's like, it's, even though your mum's one happened
like 10 years ago, yeah,
it's still it's like, would you say now it feels like it's for the very first time you're kind of processing now, and on top of that, you've got your sisters to that process as well.
100%, which is why it's hard, and I feel like I've got to this stage, in adulthood where I feel a bit stuck, sort of, because it's like, wow, I'm really doing, aside from the grief stuff, like it's all right for me, I've just graduated from uni in the most the difficult, this is the hardest academic year I've had. My sister passed away 4 days into the beginning of my final year of uni. But I promised her on the last day when we had our final words that I'll finish it, and I have. But all those things, like football's going all right, I've got a nice job, but it's like I'm stuck, because it doesn't matter what I do for myself personally. It's like I've just started to process my mum's one, and then I miss my sister so much, and I haven't really started to process her one because it still feels fresh. Yeah. Sometimes I think she's still gonna be around, so. It's difficult. It's so different. And I think back to when I was like a kid. Like I said, like I was running around in the football pitch. Like I didn't think about these things.
Like as kids, like we're often like just protected from so many different things, and it's just the innocence, isn't it? Because I think, like, because I think you said it once, like when I think at the time I was watching one of your videos, and you said the story about the fun fair.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So like, what was that like? Was that a do you feel like that was something that was said to kind of not deter you, but just not tell you the real reason that was happening with your mum?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So what happened was my mum was coming home, but the way it got presented to me and my younger siblings was that she was coming home and that everything was all good. Because there was a period where she was like, we was confused where she was basically because she wasn't at home every day. There was still everything we needed, but she wasn't at home every day. So I was like, yeah, mum's coming home. So we thought, oh yeah, okay, like what are we gonna do when she comes home? Like, what are we gonna play? We're gonna play a game or like what's gonna happen? Just as kids. Um, and then I remember the night when my mum did come home, she looked very different. So she had no hair on her head. She looked tired. She didn't really look at me too tough. And then we each took it in turns to go and sit with her in a room that night just to kind of, and I remember my mum didn't really look at me. I don't think she did actually. Yeah, she didn't look at me at all. I don't know how she felt, but obviously she was really drained and in a lot of pain. And the next morning we got woken up really early and we got told, oh, kids, you're going to go to the fun fair. So my dad told us, yeah, you're going to go to the fun fair. So me being a kid, like, I found my best trainers. I ran into my brother's room. I was like, yeah, we're going fun fair today. Like what we gonna buy, or what rucksack are you taking, or whatever it is that kids were doing. Yeah, on the way down the stairs, my dad said, oh, make sure you say goodbye to mum. And then us being young kids, I just thought, why am I saying she's meeting us at the fun fair? Like, why am I saying she's back home now? Like, she's gonna meet us at the fun fair. I didn't think anything of it. We left. We ended up going to another family member's house, and then they said, oh, they'd forgot the money for the fun fair, so we have to go back to the house now to get the money so we can go to the fun fair. I remember we were having a race on the way home. So from the bus stop, I was saying to my brothers, like, I bet I'll beat you to the house. So we were racing, and then I remember I looked up on the balcony and I saw people from my country, so like my uncle and my relatives and stuff. And I was thinking, wait a second, how did they get from St. Vincent, so where I'm from,
you
to
saying, like, you think
this
your
is
uncle
not
done a
this is
Usain
not
Bolt,
adding
like.
up. And then my brothers, obviously, they were like, they run past me. They was like, oh yeah, we're beating you now, because I had stopped at that point because something clicked in my mind. I thought, okay, yeah, there's something's gonna happen that's not good. And I remember I didn't even get all the way up the stairs. By the time I got to the stairs, I already knew what was going on. Like, in my head, I just knew like my mum was gone, because everyone just seemed so down. I've never seen my older brothers look like that ever.
Yeah.
So it was horrible, because then at that point my dad thought it would be a great time to sit us down in the room and tell us that mum had cancer and we should go and in the room before they take the body and say final words. I was terrified. I'm not gonna go in the room and have a picture of my mum that I don't want to have in my head. And also, it's like, how do you expect a 13-year-old, a 12-year-old, an 11-year-old, and a 5-year-old at that moment in time, once mum's already passed, to process that she had cancer? I don't even remember the rest of that sentence. I just heard, yeah, mum's got cancer, and everything else was a blur. I don't remember the days after that. I remember we just clicked out, and I think that was the point where we started being angry, and then obviously having to move into my dad's house we didn't get off on a good foot, really, did we? So it kind of, but it was definitely used as a disguise, because why else would, But I haven't had the courage to ask my brothers why. Only until my sister passed, like I said, I started asking questions, and I found out from my older brother that my mum, we made our mum's day, so she didn't want to see the younger ones sad. Us being happy, and her knowing that we had a good day at school or whatever it was, and was still smiling and laughing with her. That made her days. Even when she spent most of the day in the hospital, she came home and she was still happy because the younger ones were happy. So, it came from her. She said, "Don't tell the younger ones." So now I can understand that. But through my childhood, I had resent to my brothers as well, my older ones. I was like, well, you could have just told me, it's not just my dad. And I remember there was a lot of division and a lot of anger towards everyone and not understanding what was going on. And, that's the difference, and it gets you paranoid, because I remember when we found out about my sister, the first thing I did was I called my youngest brother, who's now 14. And I said, look, I'm about to tell you something that is crazy, but when I was 14, I wish someone gave me this phone call. So I'm giving you this phone call. And I know you might not like it now, but in 10 years' time, you're going to love me for it.
That's as real as it gets, because sometimes, like, we tend to like want to shield kids from certain things, but sometimes they need to go through it. And I remember when I went through, like when my dad, my parents was, I was young, but not like young as in childhood young, but like I remember having that same mentality of like as an older brother wanting to protect my younger sister. So there's a particular moment when we went to see the body, and I was like, oh no, you just stay outside, don't come, just stay, because you're too young for this. But like looking back now, she did come to see the body, but looking back now, I'm glad I didn't kind of rob her of that, because it's not my call. Even though it's hard, like I want to protect her, but I don't know what that would have made her feel if she didn't get to see it. Even though it's not, it's grim. Do you know what I mean? It's not pleasant, but they have to. She has to kind. I don't want to. She has to see that. Do you know what I mean? To process things in her own way. So I think sometimes it gets like that, and
You have to be
you have to
like,
do what you had to do,
yeah.
and I don't know how your brother processes it now, but maybe I'm sure that at some point he'll be thankful that I'm kind of glad, like, Teni told me that this was what's happening with our older sister and things like that, so because it's that's something with grief, man. It's horrible, like in the sense where like the beginning of it, like in terms of seeing someone deteriorate, or having to deal with the aftermath of someone not being there, like, and when you go through that as kids, it's not often doesn't feel normal, like, do you know what I mean? But I feel like grief is everyday life. Like even like now, I'm seeing a lot of things where people are trying to educate people on grief, like in their own way, because like this is something that we've got to understand that it's part of life, and there are many ways for us. I'm sure like for us to keep our loved ones' memory alive. Even as a kid, people who have lost people can talk to their kids about that person they've lost and say, look, this is grandpa, this is dad, this is how, these little things that keeps their memory alive. So I think it's good, and because I remember when I came across your page, I was like, this is like it's hard because I think you mentioned that this is like a big thing for you, like opening up about this, like, but and I know like talking is not always the only way to express thing, but it's when I see people do it, I think it's good, man. Like just keep talking and helping people. Like I think it's just that's what needs to happen, because grief isn't something that's like it's not abnormal. It's normal. Do you know what I mean? It's normal, but it's just that because there's not enough conversation around it, and we don't kind of. It's not something that we kind of like normalize.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
people just don't know what to
think or what to say, or
you know.
yeah, it's tough. I think like now I talk about things, but prior to this, every time I tried or maybe I got upset, it kind of got shut down. My brothers were like, what are you doing? Like, we have to be strong. The situation is what it is. Why are you crying about it? And that's just, I don't know if it's like, it's a bit of a guy thing sometimes, I think, or it could be a bit of a
definitely is a guy thing, man.
sometimes like my culture as well, you don't really talk about too tough your problems. It's always like you have to be strong, you have to hold it down, like, life is tough, this is, you have to kind of roll with it, sort of thing. And I think that's how things were presented to them, which is obviously that's the way they are. But because the boys see all the boys do it, for me talking now is like sometimes it still feels scary, because it's like, I've been taught for these past 10 years that I shouldn't be doing, I shouldn't, in quotations, be doing this, you know what I mean? But now if my brothers, they don't talk about it at all.
Really, yeah.
At all. Like my sister's name gets avoided. Same with my mum. But that's just how they process it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I'd like to think that maybe one day that we'll be able to sit down as a family and talk about it. But it's hard, man. My brothers are just so cutthroat with it, like shut down with it. So it's difficult. And I remember when I first saw your page, I was like, there's two guys. This is crazy. And from a background that I could understand, which I could also relate to my brother's side, and I got thinking like, maybe there is hope one day for my brothers to talk. It's not just a whatever. And I think that's the idea behind my page as well. It's like, it's been 10 years since my mum, but it's never too late to start talking. There's never an end date, just like there isn't for grief. I could not want to talk about my sister's stuff in depth for the next 10 years, and that's okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Talk
Yeah,
about her when I'm ready.
that's why I rate what you're saying right now, because there's never even though like talking about it, like there's never like, oh, I will never say to someone, oh, it's why have you started talking about it now? Everyone's starting point is different. Whether that's a year after, 2 years, 5 years, like, it doesn't matter. Like, or whether you want to maybe talk about it for a year and then maybe not reveal so much. It doesn't matter. How you gonna deal with it is up to you. No one can control that. So, like with your brothers, like maybe for them when they do get to a point when they open up, it might not be talking, it might be through other positive ways of expressing, or it might be talking. But I think everyone has got to arrive there in their own time, like, because I know again a lot of people do kind of feel like guys we don't really, as a guy, like this whole like the whole like kind of like masculine thing, you don't really talk about certain things. But everyone's different. Like me, I've always been someone that's always been expressive. Like, I mean, I wasn't talking about it early on. Like, it took me time, you know. But I've just learned to kind of like, like not feel like this is hindering me. Like, I'm by talking about it, that's what helps me. Like, so if more people can talk, and that's why like I feel like this starting this podcast with Ben was just like a way for us to bring other people to, without realizing it, bring other people to kind of share their stories. But and hopefully that can continue, man. Because yeah, life is just not even. Life is life. I'll just put it like that. Like, things happen. Like losing parents is, for me, it was tough, and I'm sure losing, your sister, mum, was tough. But it's getting through it. That's the only thing we can do now. Get through it, because this is what we're left with. I mean, we have all the memories and things like that, but we have to just live a life like with the grief. So move with it. I always say, not shy away from it. But like I said, everyone's way of dealing with it is going to be different. But just to kind of round up, just like I wanted to just briefly just kind of like just share with people watching and listening, about your page. Obviously, I know why you started, but just to talk a bit more about your page and like what you have, if you can share what you have planned, maybe so much in future with it, or maybe some short-term plans, like things like that.
Yeah, so I think,
not to put you on the spot, no pressure in it.
You did a little bit.
Sorry.
No, so I think obviously, like I said, the idea behind it was that just to kind of get out there that there's never really, you can talk about things when you want to talk about things. Just because it's been 10 years, it's not too long to start talking about things. So there's that as well. But then also it was also a way for me to just release, really. Like I said, a lot of my friends, especially like my new friends that obviously I formed at uni or whatnot, didn't have a clue that I'd lost my mum and that, my sister passed, really. So it was a way for me sort of to like prove to myself that I can do this and I can feel okay about talking about it. Yeah, that's ultimately what I've done and what I've created. And what's nice is I found this like amazing community, which 5 years ago I never had a clue about. You know what I mean? I never knew that there was so many people that have these types of pages, or actually really connect or support one another in another way. And the support system that I get from this is completely different to what I get from when I go to counselling. So I think it balances out everything for me, and I think it gives me a sense of like, I want to say hope. I don't know, is hope the right word?
Yeah,
or
no,
like
I think
like,
that's the perfect word to use, like, because when you're in the thick of it, like, it's,
you think you're the only one, don't you? When you're in the thick of it, you do. And I spent 10 years honestly thinking like I was the only one, because I went to uni, I made X amount of friends. They didn't know that much like in depth about me, and I didn't know that much, I guess, about them to that extent. And I looked around one time, I stood in the middle of my campus and I thought, wonder how many people like have lost their mum, or am I just the only one here? Like, like I genuinely had those thoughts like every day, and I genuinely thought I was you know, when you, like you said, when you're in a mix of it, you think you're the only one, and it's like a cycle, and then you beat yourself up about it, and then you kind of just go around in a cycle, and it can lead you to dangerous thoughts or whatnot. So I wanted to find a healthy way to release, but also in my own time, which I'm happy that I've now got there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And yeah, I think the idea behind it is just to continue doing what I'm doing. There's no major hopes or no major like goals set for it, because it's just all a natural thing. I decided to do it one day, set up the page, and I did, and I've stuck with it, which is not something that I thought I'd be able to do.
Yeah, that's progress, man. Because one day you think, oh, I can never imagine myself doing something like this, and now here you are. So I think that's good, and I think the more pages, the more people talking, the better. Like, and again, it's not to say that talking is the only way, but I'm not gonna lie. When I hear people talking about their stories, it kind of I like it. Like, do you know what I mean? It gives me kind of, okay, I don't feel isolated. Do you know what I mean? I don't feel like, okay, that there's something that people can relate to, and even just like, like grief. Obviously, everyone goes through it. Well, not everyone, but a lot of us have been through it. But even just hearing like maybe another black man talking, or another black woman talking, especially whether it's from the same background or not, or like similar cultures, you kind of just like, you appreciate that. Do you know what I mean? And I think like now there's a lot more of that now. Do you know what I mean? Whereas maybe at the time, maybe we don't know what's happening. We don't really know, have a solid resource we can turn to for help, or just to talk. And I think most of the time it's not necessarily just, I feel for me, it's not always about just wanting the answer for something, but just like listening to people's different, like, it kind of just makes me feel settled.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, I know this is mad, but yeah, but there's a lot, there's more of us, like,
Yeah.
there's, we can kind of, like, this whole kind of, we can kind of get through it together, sort of thing. So that's just how I kind of see it, and that kind of makes me feel, okay, you know what, this is good. Like, I can kind of
Yeah.
get through everything I need to get through. So
Bit by bit.
yeah,
Yeah.
man. And
I don't know if like this is for you as well, but for me, I think one thing that helps me as well is seeing someone in similar age bracket
yeah,
talk
100%.
about it.
Yeah, hundred
That
percent.
really, really helps me.
That's a
I
big thing.
think,
Like,
if I see someone in a similar age bracket, I'm like, oh wow, they're what, and they know how this feels.
yeah,
Like
no, that's a big thing.
that really gets me, and I think that's I found that a lot through this community, which is nice. I think obviously not nice that everyone's in that position, but
Yeah,
you know
no,
what
no,
I
yeah,
mean.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, definitely. That's the age factor is definitely a big thing, and I think a lot of the people we kind of, a lot of our, when it comes to audience, I think it is that kind of same age bracket of 23 to like maybe like 29.
6, 28, yeah,
Yeah,
28,
like,
somewhere there, yeah.
so it kind of helps, because and most of the people we've had on it has been kind of within that kind of age range. Like, maybe some are a bit older, but either way, whether old or not, you can still relate. But I know what you mean. It does kind of
It does.
help when you see other people, But like I said, I think it's about getting through it, like, one day at a time. Like, it's not easy, man. It's not easy. But I appreciate you coming on. I know these conversations are not always hard, and you've done it before. But either way, like, I always like thank you, thank our guests for coming on, because it can be a lot. Like, despite how many times you talk about it,
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? So, and everyone has different triggers. So I appreciate you just being honest about it, man, and just continue to excel. It sounds like you're doing good. With the graduation and just getting through life, and and I know, like, sometimes things may get tough, as it does with grief, because there's no, like, just like one. It doesn't go one direction in it.
No.
Sometimes it can hit you out of nowhere. Just, it's inconvenient. Do you know what I mean? So, however you're dealing with it, just keep doing what you're doing, man. This is a late intro, but for those listening and watching, we've got Teni on the podcast. Did I say it right, Teni?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, I said it right. Yeah, like, I was thinking it was it is an African name. I thought you were African, but we cleared that up. So it's all good. But yeah, where can people, like, find you if they want to, like, reach out or anything like that? So, like, just plug any of your, like, socials and things like that.
So on Instagram, it's Voiceless Thoughts Hub. So you can find me on Instagram there. I've got a page that kind of talks about my trauma and what's going on in my mind, and just an open space for everyone else to kind of come together and share. So yeah.
That's good. And you can find us, well, on major platforms: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, on Instagram, Thinking Out Loud Pod underscore. Subscribe to the channel. Give Teni a follow as well. What else can I plug? And yeah, and just keep on watching, keep on following all things about grief. Because as I said, like I feel like it's an important thing now, and I think we're getting to that point where like it's becoming a bit more normal now. Do you know what I mean? Because the past year alone has taught us that grief is like can happen out of nowhere. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, man. But other than that, that's our time. We're definitely over time, but it's it doesn't even matter. But thank you, man.
No problem. Thanks for having me.